Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to discuss another Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Season 2, Episode 4. Clarice blows up everything. Basically, this episode is a follow-up to the last episode in which Percy, Tyson, and Annabeth explore on the Princess Andromeda, where they encounter Percy's old foe Luke, where he tries to recruit them, but they refuse, and with Tyson's help, they escape. Meanwhile, Clarice, is gathering a crew from her father, leaving behind the campers. Of soldiers who had already lost the battle and trying to gain their approval to lead in the expedition, if you will, and realizing that the coordinates that she's going to needs false given by Tennis. So basically, she needs to find Percy Jackson. Well, as the preview hints, that these two groups will clash, with Clarice trying to get Percy to lead them away. How will that take place? Well, we're about to find out as I directly narrate the episode. The episode basically sort of begins with Annabeth finding in a sewer, finding a containment box with a monster donuts, if you will, basically supplies that Luke and Thalia and her used to do when they were doing their exploits when they were younger. And we cut to a flashback when Annabeth notices a plastic bracelet. Revealing that Luke was helping. Luke and her came here before, where Luke was showing her the supplies. And a sort of way to encourage her, gave her a plastic bracelet saying that this is from a god of stealth. Annabeth sort of believing what Luke is saying, but this is more of this Luke trying to assure her. We then get our first appearance of Thalia Grace in the series, a first real actual appearance where she is played by Tamara Smart, which from my understanding from the actress, yes, she is she's known for Are You Afraid of the Dark, Artemis Fowl, A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, and Resident Evil 2 2020. I have no idea what roles she has in those, but she seems to have a bit of a acting career beforehand, so she might be a good choice. But nevertheless, I will admit she does look like at least the punk rock-ass thing. And yes, she is portrayed by, I believe, African-American actress, since, well, of course, yes, Zeus was played by the late, hold on. What's his name? Zeus, trying to think, what's his name? Okay. Hold on, nope. Hold on, what was his name? I've forgotten the actor's name. Zeus. Let me just. Zeus actor Percy Jackson. And said the name before. Oh yeah. The late Lance Redrick, so they had a bit of a I guess you could say race swap, but that's fine. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, she arrives. She was dealing with 3 Cyclopses, saying they're coming in close, and then when she thinks one of them has come along, she takes it out and knocks it out. But it turns out to be Grover, who has come here to rescue them and all that stuff, if you will, particularly Thalia, as Chiron has sent him to rescue her, which we cut back to the present. We see that Tyson's finished fixing up the boat that Percy and Annabeth are on, which you see a bit of talking with the two of them bonding, if you will. And then they start Percy talks about the quest last time about how he failed to save Sally Jackson, but it worked out when Tyson was talking about how he doesn't like how Annabeth seemed to talk about Percy being dangerous. They have a little bit of a bro moment where they sort of like Percy telling her about what happened with the prophecy last year, and also doing a little tease of doing a burp, suddenly burp back and jump in a chase, but then the ship blows up and Clarice arrives. let's see, demanding the coordinates from Percy Jackson. Annabeth tries to persuade her to do it, Clarice to arrives to try and take them on the crew, as Percy can use the sea to navigate. Annabeth, her being a tactician and knows all the monsters on the sea of monsters, and Tyson being a Cyclops could be immune to can work in the engine down below, being immune to fire. But Clarice is pretty much thinks she doesn't need them, as she's got Perry and Napoleon, who was a navigator for Napoleon. Boris, who was a Russian steamship engineer, and apparently Canfus, who was a Argonaut on Jason's Argonauts, if you will. So who also has a knowledge in the Sea of Monsters. So she thinks she's basically doesn't need them. Percy tries to offer alternative doing like a one-on-one duel, pointing out that's what he did last time with the father, saying that if they win, they take her boat, but if she wins, she gets, of course, the coordinates and all that stuff. And since Clarice wasn't willing to take them aboard, and also following Tantalus, like, you lot allow traitors to the camp, if you will, orders which, of course, Clarice agrees to the terms of the duel, so they fight a bit, but Annabeth, not wanting to take it to chance, uses an invisible cap and takes out the 3 dead crew members that Clarice named. As a result, forcing her no choice but to take Tyson, Percy, and Annabeth, because they basically cover what she's now missing. So they get on board, and Annabeth tells that Clarice there are 2 monsters that need to be dealt with in the entrance of the Sea of Monsters, and their names, I believe, are, well, granted, they're probably going to be as bad as announcing it as Percy Jackson, which let's see, Silica or Caribus. I mean, Caribus is a whirlpool, and Syracuse is a tentacle monster, if you will. Let's see. Percy tries to suggest of going around, but Annabeth and Clarice point out that no, you have to choose one of them, and also that their monsters will appear even if you try to avoid them and all that stuff. Let's see. Clarice wants to take the whirlpool monster because, well, that would be easier. That she thinks she has enough firepower to do it. But Annabeth thinks that this is a very risky plan and likely to be crushed, the ship and all that stuff, and all the crew. So she suggests doing this sort of Cyrus or tentacle one, if you will, because it only has 6 tentacles. As a result, if it's occupied with taking 6 of the crewmates, dead crewmates, they can get past it, for the sacrifice. But Clarice is a bit reluctant to do this at first because, well, she promised the dead men that she promised them Elysium if they succeed on the quest. It feels like sacrificing them would be breaking that promise, even though Percy tries to vouch for Annabeth's plan, thinking these guys are already dead, so they'll just be going back to the death afterwards. But Clarice is not very convinced, though Percy Jackson, of course, sides with Annabeth. And during the course of this episode, you see Annabeth looking at this bracelet he has, seeing more and more of her flashbacks, if you will. See more and more of these flashbacks, if you will, where Groover is putting them in sort of a state of sanctuary, where saying that as long as they stay in there, they'll be safe. Thalia and Luke are reluctant to go to camp with apparently Luke. I might have forgotten this change from last season, that Luke apparently tried the camp once and didn't work, and Clarice doesn't want to really do, Thalia doesn't really want to get into the father's world, particularly when Grover was talking about all the different types of Ritzy beings that worship the lost god Pan, when explaining that to Annabeth of his symbol and all that stuff. So Yeah, Grover tries to point out that the older they get, the more monsters they attract the sense to, particularly a daughter of Zeus. He's saying that, do you really want that life for Annabeth? Which Thalia, and Luke, even when they consider this, are still remaining defiant on it. But Annabeth, when they are getting to sleep, thinks that, oh God, I forgot I dropped the bracelet that Luke said would protect me and all that stuff. So, not out loud to everyone, but thinking to herself. And in the present timeline, she ends up throwing it into the sea, but it keeps coming back. And Tyson picks it up, and he says he's playing with Rainbow with it, when Annabeth later spots him with him, wondering when he got that, but not realizing that Tyson was actually referring to someone called Rainbow, which we see a glimpse of. In the sea, if you will, so sort of hinting towards the sort of seahorse that eventually become Tyson's ride for some parts of the Sea of Monsters. So we got that. And then we get more of like the flashback where it's revealed that Annabeth actually went to go and get it, but so she went to go and try and find it, but the Cyclops is using Thalia and Luke's voices, trick her, and as a result, she gets captured. Thalia comes in to save them, and that's the moment when she decides that, okay, we need to go to camp if it means at least regarding her safety. She and Luke don't like it, so don't like going to camp, but they're willing to do it for Annabeth's sake, if you will. And of course, Annabeth eventually Annabeth gets to meet up with Percy, and she reveals this to him that just during this part of the story. The Cyclopses was the last heart. She made a few mistakes there with Thalia coming to save them. The Cyclopses was the last time when they decided, okay, we're going to go to camp now. And that's when they encountered the three Furies, in which Thalia stayed behind to take care of them. But of course, she met her fate, and there's now a tree, if you will. So, Annabeth sort of blames herself, and during this course of they're doing this, I think you see Percy sort of interacting with Annabeth, and Chloe Stuartsy considering Annabeth's plan. I might have gone minutes jumped out in order, but Percy sort of reserves Annabeth that this plan of hers is a good one, and hold on a sec. During this, Percy ends up having a chat again with Tyson, where Percy's able to tell the speed and directions of this, in which Percy realizes, this is the ability that he has from his dad. Tyson wonders why he hasn't got this ability, but Percy thinks Tyson might get it eventually. No, probably not realizing that, okay, since he's a human and demigod, since he's a demigod, he probably gets a bit more of a Poseidon Sea abilities than Tyson does, but that's basically it. But nevertheless, he is at least trying to encourage Tyson, and then afterwards, Percy, of course, finds Annabeth, and she, of course, tells the story which I mentioned, and at this point, Annabeth feels like she doesn't think that she blames herself basically for Thalia's death, if you will, though wondering why would she think it's trying to dismiss that about how Thalia would see her as important, only just knowing for 2 months, but Percy reveals that she knew that Annabeth was special after 2 days, so showing Annabeth that Thalia had more than enough reasons to look after Annabeth, even if she only knew her for a little while. So you got that, and but yeah, and then of course Clarice makes her decision and decides to take Annabeth's plan with the monster. Called. Nope. Let's see, what is it called again? I forget the name. Oh yeah, Celica so asks men for volunteers, which they all do. As you can see that this is weighing heavily on Clarice. Percy tries to assure her, and she ends up with feeling that talking about, let's see, this pressure of like trying not to succeed being a daughter of Ares, but also reveals, let's see, the prophecy that when she asks Percy how she succeeded, with Percy talking about his friends, and eventually she ends up, after Percy asking her about what in the other camp was going, let's see, she's saying she only took the crew aboard, and eventually, of course, talks about, let's see, the prophecy he went through last year, and then she reveals the prophecy fully going about how you shall sail to the iron ship with warriors of bone, you shall find what you seek and make it your own, but despair for your life entombed within stone, and fare without friends to fly home alone. With let's see, Percy trying to say that it sounds a lot better than the one he got, but this is where Mitch Ritzy comes in, the sort of blockbuster employee that lost in the streaming war. Let's see, with Percy letting with like Clarice now trying to like preparing the ship, but tries to point out to Percy Jackson that they're not friends, as Percy's trying to like to assure her that if maybe perhaps that with her Annabeth, with him Annabeth and Tyson here, she has friends, but she's yet to admit that they're actually kind of friends, if you will. Anyway, they arrive at the Sea of Monsters. Let's see. We start to see, they of course arrive at the place of the Tentacle One. It takes at least about 3 crew members, one of them being the, British captain, I believe, if you will. What's his name? Carrington, who turns around and looks at, like, of course, Annabeth, Clarice, and Percy, maybe perhaps realizing that he's about to be sacrificed, and this was like the plan, which this guilts sort of Clarice, and she changed course to like the Whirlpool monster. Annabeth at first tries to talk her out of it, or even tries to steal the ship away, but Clarice is convinced, and then gets onto the camera. Let's see, but Clarice is determined, gets into like the cannon, and the rest of the crew try to help her. Some falling off aboard, and one more getting taken by the tentacle monster. Percy and Annabeth then try to do a plan where Percy tries to control the whirlpools, but he points to Annabeth that he cannot, steer with her use sign that they need the wind firmest, if you will, from before earlier. So she tries to get to get it, but due to like the battle, she drops it, and it sort of piles into the thing, where air bursts inside the ship. Tyson, of course, is in the engine trying to sort things out. Eventually, the ship blows up, and everyone's in the sky and all that stuff after a bit of a battle, ending the episode, if you will. Now, of course, Annabeth at first nearly falling off, but Clarice trying to save her and all that stuff. Percy trying his best before, they all fly off. So, yeah. Anyway, my overall thoughts. Granted, a bit longer than I intended, but that's, I guess, what happens when I try to find the names of like certain actors and didn't get prepared for that part. But yeah. Okay. First off, let's see. First of all, I suppose I will do with the Annabeth flashback plot, if you will, of her, Luke, and Thalia. It's actually nice to actually get a bit of a flashback, actually get to see a little bit of Thalia, Luke's, and Annabeth's adventures a bit, and when they met Grover, if you will. I suppose it makes sense that they would try and do this now, given that this will be like the actors are still, appropriate age, though, at least with Grover. I mean, of course, they got like a young child actor to replace the main actress for Annabeth at the moment, but that's fine. I do like how we see like Luke trying to assure Annabeth, giving her a bracelet, saying that this will protect you, sort of similar to like the knife thing, but he's sort of lying here, which you can probably tell it's just like Luke's way of trying to assure her, but it's also it sort of makes a mistake a bit of like, due to like Annabeth trusting Luke completely at this point, thinks that he's being legit. As a result, we've got a comment from the Power to 99 saying, fun fact about the flashback. The girl that plays Annabeth is the cousin of the person who plays Thalia. Oh, that is interesting. Yes, so I suppose that's how they managed to play well together. Arguably, you could even argue how the actress who played Thalia was doing a very good job of playing a protective older sister-like figure, because if you're like cousins and all that stuff, you probably would be a sort of like either a big brother figure, brother or sis, or in this case sister figure to your little cousins. Heck, I'll admit I tried to be a bit of an uncle-like figure to my little cousins, so second cousins, but yeah, so stuff like that. So I definitely see how they are able to portray foster family quite well. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for the comment. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So yeah, I think it makes sense that they picked showing this flashback now. Luke probably making a mistake of doing that, but you can see why. I do like that we actually got, like I said, that we actually did get to see Grover meet them. Him trying to persuade the campers. Granted, I will admit this whole Satyr sanctuary thing is a bit convenient thing, and granted, you feel like I don't recall if that was actually if they ever did that in the first season, because frankly, it doesn't look. It feels like it could have come up a few times in the first season, but I don't think they did. But nevertheless, this is more of just for the drama of like Fag and Luke trying to refuse Grover's help at first, but only doing it again later when only for them to have a heel turn afterwards when Annabeth gets kidnapped by Cyclopses, which arguably in the books it was only one Cyclops, but here it's three. Why the show's three, I'm not sure. My guess is to mash with like the three Lastrian giants, if you will. I'm not sure if it's the same actors, but yeah. Nevertheless, but yeah. Granted, the Cyclopses, while they do capture, Annabeth, they're not necessarily blamed as being the monsters that delayed them to camp, if you will. But then again, Luke and Thalia not wanting to go and camp compared to the books, so fine. Which is a bit interesting because arguably we know in the books it's basically Annabeth and Luke for the longest time blamed. I know, as far as I can tell, Annabeth and Luke blamed the Cyclops for why they got delayed to getting to camp and why the monsters eventually catch up and killed Thalia, which as a result that caused her tension with Tyson and to an extent Percy Jackson, because Tyson was a Cyclops and she sort of dislikes all Cyclops, but eventually warms up to Tyson. But clearly the show is not doing that conflict, if you will. At least it's not as hostile. Anyway, we got another comment from the Power to 99 saying, as far as I know about the changes from the book, they mostly come from Rick Riordan himself or are suggested by /other writers and producers of the show. Yeah, to be fair, I can see some of these changes being possibly Rick Riordan, perhaps. I mean, after all, he is the creator. He is the original creator of Percy Jackson, and probably would need to approve some of the changes to the books, or thinking like, okay, not everything's going to adapt well to a live action TV show. So, yeah, I think you should change it to this or that. That possibly might be what he is doing here, possibly, and all that stuff. So, but I'll get more to the changes down the line. But yeah. But I will admit, let's see. You could have done one with Cyclops or not. I mean, granted, I do know that the movies implied that it was the Cyclops that killed Thalia, so that made it a lot more personal in the movie, I guess. But yeah. But since they're not doing that amnesty with Tyson, they sort of course changed it to the Cyclops was like kidnapping was the last straw of when Thalia and Luke decided, okay, you know what? For Annabeth's sake, we're going to go to camp. Which I do like that moment because it's shows just how protective Thalia is to like Annabeth is like she doesn't really want to go to this place, but for her sake she will, because she knows Annabeth, being young as she is and being kidnapped. Betsy figures like, okay, if this protects Annabeth, we'll go there. I do like it, and in a sense, it does show that this whole Bitsy bead plot line that we see with the flashback kind of shows a little bit of how, despite Annabeth being very smart, she does have a bit of naivety when she was younger, particularly trusting Luke with this, like what the bracelet was and thinking it was important. But as a result of that whole incident, she sort of blames herself for like Thalia's death and all that stuff, which does lead to a nice, guess, if you will, Percybeth moment, if you will, which with him revealing that he knew she was special with just 2 days of meeting her, when she sort of like doubting herself, and like particularly when it's like Thalia only knew her for 2 months, why did she care so much? And in a sense, Percy's trying to assure her that she shouldn't really blame herself for Thalia's death, but it is sort of like a nice touch, and it does sort of more build up, I guess, to like Luke saying you only knew her for 2 months kind of situation. So yeah, I do like how this sort of like flashback at the very least. We got to see like Grover helping. We got to see Thalia a bit earlier than probably expected. We got to see how Annabeth, Luke, and Thalia met Grover, and we got to see like her end at the Furies. Granted, I will say, due to the show's budgeting, I'd say the one downside of this flashback is the fact that you only see Clarice fighting like the Three Furies, and from what the books described, it was a whole horde of monsters that was surrounding her, so it doesn't feel like as epic as a final stand as it probably should have been. But then again, we don't actually see the actual final stand fight, if you will. I guess it was nice to see the Three Furies again, which, to be fair, they were among the monsters that were implied in the books. Granted, the show makes it a bit vague with whether or not those furries were there on Hades' orders or not, because granted, from the last season, we saw how much of a chill guy Hades is, but who knows? So yeah. So also like I said, nice Percybeth moment. But speaking of moments, I do like throughout the episode, you had a few Percy and Tyson brotherly bonding moments, if you will, where Tyson doesn't really like how Annabeth said Percy was dangerous, but Percy tries to assure her, and Tyson talks about how last year's quest and like how he thought he was failing to save his mum, but of course prophecies don't necessarily turn out as what they imply. And then they also have this sort of fun moment of like burping at each other, which it's immature and silly, but you can see Bretzy brothers who get along doing that kind of thing. So there's like that. And also the two of them sort of talking about, let's see what powers they get from inheriting from Poseidon when Percy finds out he has very good sea navigation skills. So I do like the moments between Percy and Tyson with that stuff. And I think it's like nice little building up moments of like you see Percy and Tyson, or at least Percy's accepting more of Tyson being his brother. Granted, there's not. The show kind of left out that conflict of like Percy being a bit embarrassed to have Tyson as a brother at first, but fair enough. But which is arguably probably going to make the next episode a bit with these sort of moments, Percy sort of like having that emotional reaction of losing what he thought was like his brother or something. But yeah. One change I will admit that the show did that was probably a little, on one hand, disappointing not to see the Hydra. I can sort of get it. I mean, this is a TV show in Disney Plus. It's not going to have the most expensive budget ever. It's not going to have something like, I guess, Acolyte and or levels of budget. Though, granted, I think most people said that despite the budget that Acolyte had, it was sort of poor. Let's see. yeah, it was sort of poorly used or something. But yeah. But I can understand that why they would cut off the Hydra. I do like the sort of little nod when they have like in the supply thing that in Luke and Annabeth's hideout, if you will, with Fally and all that stuff. That Luke puts out Monster Donut cereal box as a sort of like Easter egg, if you will, to that thing in the books. To like that there's like these donut stands throughout. The Percy Jackson world, and the Hydra is amongst those. But yeah, so yeah, you don't get to see the Hydra monster in this, so but because probably to the budget, but you still at least see Clarice blowing up at least Percy and Tyson and their boat, if you will. And instead, you had another sort of clash between Percy and Fire, which it's fine. It's nice that they're sort of building more up to this personal rivalry that Percy and Clarice sort of have, if you will. So I think that's a good substitute. It's like if you can't do the Hydra monster, you might as well have the two, like, I guess, fight each other, particularly after Annabeth and her and the others failed at first to get Clarice to take them aboard the ship. So you still have like Clarice blowing something up, and then of course them having a bit of a rematch. And it goes to show that Percy and Clarice have a bit very evenly matched in combat, either showing that Percy has grown much better as a fighter after last year, where he needed the water, I think, to give a bit of advantage. I think that's, if I recall, that went down last time. It's been a while since I've seen the first season, but I do recall that being in the books as well. So I do like that, and I do like how it gives Annabeth a moment of trying to, after Clarice that Tantalus judged them all criminals to be killed and all that, she tries to, of course, persuade Clarice that they have the skills she needs to get on the boat to get into the Sea of Monsters, with her pointing out to different members of her crew, which, of course, being a navigator for Napoleon, a Russian steam engineer, and of course an Argonaut, which it's like, damn. I mean, mentioned a bit earlier that in the story that apparently 6 Argonauts were like killed in the Sea of Monsters when Jason led the Argonauts in. So I wonder if he was one of those monsters, which I want, arguably, if he probably survived Annabeth stabbing, he might have suggested Ritzy not to do the tentacle monster at first, but I do like how Annabeth, like when Percy and Clarice are having their evenly matched fights, they're like, okay, I'm taking matters into her own hands. So I do like that she did that, taking the matters in her own hand of like, okay, if Clarice needs crewmates, I'm just going to force her to, I'm going to take out the crewmates that she needs to force our way onto her ship, if you will. So I thought that was like a very clever and even cold calculated move by Annabeth. But then again, let's see, given the fact that these guys are already dead men, I guess Annabeth is a bit more willing to kill them. So if you will, otherwise I doubt she would have. Which leads to the next bit, which we end up seeing a bit more of a cold, calculating side to, like, I guess, Annabeth about sacrificing sort of like the dead crew members to be used as bait for the tentacle monster, Silas or something. So shows some of the more darker, more calculating side for children of Annabeth. But it's also interesting as it shows a sort of a more compassionate side for Clarice, who, despite being a daughter of Ares, would feel, is a bit reluctant to sacrifice her men, especially when she's promised them to try and get a chance in Elysium in the afterlife. And you can see it's a decision that weighs heavy on her, even when she finally seems to agree with Annabeth's decision, asking crewmates to volunteer. But I do like how her sort of resolve broke when, like, the British captain looks around and looks like, okay, you've probably betrayed us, and that sort of breaks and says, like, no, we're going back to my plan, which I do admit, I don't mind this change. It shows a bit more of a compassionate side to the daughter of Ares that perhaps she would never willingly, openly admit. It even leads to a nice sort of like conversation with Percy Jackson and Clarice. Granted, the whole prophecy is brought in, much earlier to Percy Jackson. Granted, we knew about the prophecy from the last episode, but now we get the full details here. But I do like how this seems to be, this moment here is sort of building up to probably the eventual reluctant friendship between Percy and Clarice, if you will, down the line. But yeah. Other than that, I understood why they didn't have the budget for the Hydra monster. I do glad that they managed to get the budget at the very least for the tentacle monster, even though they had to like only show mostly its tentacles and maybe a brief glimpses of its full body. Granted, it kind of reminded me of like those tentacle monsters in The Force Awakens, but I digress on that part. But nevertheless, I do like how we got to see at least that sort of sea battle with like the whirlpool monster, if you will, which I think did happen in the books. So I thought that was nice, and I do like how granted I can't recall the wind going off inside was how it happened in the books. It's been a while, but probably not. But I do think it was like a nice effect in seeing how the ship got destroyed. So I do like seeing that. So overall, I think it was a very good episode. Seeing like the Annabeth flashback, sort of how she sort of blames herself for Thalia's death, actually getting to see Thalia, actually seeing how Grover met the trio of demigods. Annabeth sort of playing smart when Clarice is about to try and hunt doing a one-on-one duel with Percy Jackson and killing the crewmates. They need to guarantee that they get aboard. Her sort of calculated side of who to sacrifice and all that. Her moment with Percy, Percy's moment with Tyson, Clarice being shown to be a much more compassionate daughter of Ares than what people might be led to believe, showing concern for her crewmates when they're about planning for the sacrifice, and when they're being sacrificed that she changes back to her original plan of facing the monster. Actually, disappointed not to see the Hydra. Questions about, I guess, Grover's Satyr Sanctuary, I guess, and but this was a nice way to include Grover in the episode when he would be a bit absent in the show as well, I guess. Seeing sort of flashback of how they got to there, like I said, Clarice being a bit more compassionate character, sort of building her friendship with Percy, I guess, as well. And, of course, seeing that sea battle at the end. So, yeah, overall, a very good episode. I'd give it like an 8, maybe 8.5 out of 10. I think good episode. Maybe, is it possibly the best episode of this season so far? Possibly. So, but, yeah, we'll have to wait and see on the rest of the episodes. But for now, I've enjoyed it. I think most of the changes they made make sense either for budget reasons or for whatever choices that they did earlier in the season. So, overall good episode. I recommend to watch it. Anyway, thank you, Power of 99, for the Power to 99 for the comments you did, particularly this one about young actress who played Annabeth, Kid Annabeth, if you will, being the cousin to like the actress who plays Thalia. That was quite useful information. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and I hope you all enjoyed this review, even though it's probably nearly as long as the episode, so maybe slightly longer if you include credits. So yeah. So I'll see you all next time when the next episode of Percy Jackson comes out. No, I probably won't review it straight away, given the fact that it's going to be the new year and all that stuff. But yeah, or the last day of the year. But for now, I am Blue Star Saber signing off. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.